evening. The meeting on February 25th, 2019 of the Dubuque Community School District Board of Education is called to order. Our mission is to develop world-class learners and citizens of character in a safe and inclusive learning community. Roll call, please.
Mr. Barton.
Here.
Ms. Bradley.
Present.
Mr. Donahue.
Here.
Mr. Prohaska.
Here.
Ms. Ryan.
Here.
Mr. Sansey.
Here.
Ms. Whitman.
Here.
I move the Board of Education approve the agenda as submitted.
Second.
It has been approved and seconded that the Board of Education approve the agenda as submitted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
I move the Board of Education approve the personnel report as submitted.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Board of Education approve the personnel report as submitted. And the discussion.
Just briefly, as you know, Executive Director of Human Resources, Phil Kramer, is retiring at the end of this year. And so we have advertised, posted that position. We did 6 interviews with 2 teams of 8, so 16 people did interviews, and then a second interview was conducted. We interviewed 4 internal candidates, 2 external candidates, very high quality field. So very excited that we had good turnout for that. It's an interesting job that takes not only experience, but also common sense, relationship building, personality that can work through what are really some of the most difficult issues that we have as a district, as well as some of the best. So very pleased to recommend Amy as the next Executive Director of Human Resources for the district. She has all the things I just mentioned and will be a great fit for that job.
Congratulations.
Congratulations. All right.
You have to approve it first.
We need to have a vote first.
You have to approve it
All
first.
those in favor?
Well, wait a minute. This could go downhill in a hurry.
Can we have more discussion? No, we're good.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries.
there.
Congratulations. All right.
I move the Board of Education allow student number 713594 to re-enter the Dubuque Community School District effective February 26, 2019.
Second.
It has been moved and seconded that the Board of Education allow student number 713594 to re-enter the Dubuque Community School District effective February 26, 2019. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? That motion carries. Okay, that takes us to our update on the strategic plan. Mr. Reingans will be leading this part.
So Mike's going to move me along with the PowerPoint. So as you know, but I'll just reiterate for those who might be watching at home or who are new, we have a strategic plan that was established last spring. It's intended to be a 5-year cycle, as we did with the previous 5-year plan. In our last rendition, many of you were on the board, we decided we needed something to sort of keep that alive on a more regular basis as opposed to looking at it every 5 years or something like that. So we developed the priority initiative process. So every year, the administrative team in conjunction with the board and some input from the community develop priority initiatives underneath the specifics of the strategic plan and make sure that we're headed the right direction so that after 5 years, you know, we know that we're going to meet or come as close to meeting those goals as possible. So we meet 3 times a year in October, I believe it's October, February, and May to talk about those priority initiatives. So tonight, really 2 things, an update on the priority initiatives that we have established last spring for this year, and then an opportunity for the board to talk, well, we'll talk about the process for developing our next rendition of priority initiatives, because of course, those will be due in May, and that'll come quickly. And so we'll want to get some board's input either tonight or at least set the stage tonight for input at upcoming either ed programs or support services meetings so that we know kind of where we're headed, so when we bring you recommendations in May, you've had an opportunity to give us some input for that. But first, the update on where we're at. Again, if you've got in front of you the priority initiatives. Tammy, do you guys have copies also? Okay. So you'll notice our key. So the right is completed, check marked, and then green is operational. We segregated that last time so that Some things are just operational and they never really actually get complete. There's an ongoing cycle. Significant progress, steady progress, some progress, and canceled. And we've added a few of those over time. As the board, the first rendition 5-6 years ago, we were pretty quickly at check marks almost across the board, and the board viewed that as a, hey, maybe we're not pushing it hard enough. And so there really should be some things that don't maybe get canceled, or we start and don't do, or don't get completely finished in a year. So that's our key. I'm going to talk a lot in the next 30 minutes, but feel free to ask questions as we go, either after a specific item or at the end if you want to do that. So know that I won't view that as anything but positive. If you chime in, gives me a chance to take a quick break. So student achievement and development is the first one that we have. So on the board will be the priority initiatives, and I have a few talking points that I'll hit as we go. So study current practices in the statewide voluntary preschool program and create an action plan to begin the 1920 school year. This really revolves around our desire to ensure that the kids who come to us in kindergarten are kindergarten ready at the highest percentages possible. So what do we do with our preschools, with our parents, with our community to help assure that the kids come through our door on that first day ready to learn? So update from where we were last time. We use the Individual Growth and Development Indicators, or IGDI, screener, and the data and stakeholder feedback are being used to inform continued action plan development. So what is it that we're doing? What does that mean? So we're meeting with not only our preschools, but our partner preschool, so another preschool who participates in our program that's run by a community member, and then helping them develop plans, kind of like our building plans for next year, so that we kind of that continuous improvement process. The very first thing that was identified, or one of the first things, was a need for an instructional coach. So my second update is an instructional coach for early childhood is being added to support and enhance instructional practices and preschool programming, primarily working with non-district partner programs. So you're all very familiar with our instructional coaches. They work one-on-one with individual teachers or in school-wide improvement plans, and so to offer that as an outreach to our community partners seems to be a very logical step as we get into the data, that how do we help build consistency as we move forward. So those are the two updates under number one. Number two, support schools in identifying individual school instructional focus areas. We actually chose this priority initiative, as you know, last May. And interestingly, the state sort of helped us with that by developing a process through the what do we call it? Not the school. No, we used to call it the school report card, citizen report card, the performance profile. So schools have to follow the process. So we're using that as well. So each school has developed a plan focused on enhancing instruction based on its identified individual needs, using the SAMI, or self-assessment of MTSS implementation process, which is a whole lot of words that the state uses to say it's a continuous self-improvement model. So our buildings have teams, leadership teams that they put together to develop, look at their individual data, because every building has data, different needs based on that data. So we're working on those plans. We have talked about it at programs, inviting principals to share, and so we will begin that process at our next, our upcoming Ed Programs meetings, where we'll have a few principals at a time come in and share what is that their plan is that will move them forward from this year to next year based on student data. And one of those that we'll hear from is Audubon, which is applying for a STEM grant. So it's a K-5 grant. They're partnering with IBM, which will bring additional coding opportunities to Audubon if we're successful in getting that grant. So pretty excited about that, and hopeful that we'll be successful in getting that grant.
Stan?
Yes.
Is this area that allows some of our elementary schools to kind of focus on certain areas for growth?
So we do it with all of our schools. So at an elementary school, because it's a little bit smaller, a little bit more nimble, more focused, probably will have the most sort of obvious changes from elementary to elementary and what they focus on. But middle school and high school are going through this process as well. In those cases, often you'll see maybe programmatic implementation versus the entire school implementation. No, that's possible too. But we're going through that. We're required to have our schools that were comprehensive. So just a couple of our schools go through it, but we've chosen to have all of our schools go through it to help them understand who they are and how they best meet the needs of their clientele, their students, and their parents, their families.
Is this the current iteration of the comprehensive school improvement plans?
It
Or is that different?
It replaces that. It's significantly different, but you're right. That's
Yeah.
what that would have been previously what was
Good,
done. Mhm. And we've been very positive. I'm not always positive about what state brings us, but this is a process. And look at Mark and Cindy, who really helped lead that we're very positive about this process. A lot of great discussions and planning going on in our buildings, and we'll share that with edited programs. Number 3, revised district safety training to include clear and consistent reinforcement of reporting concerns. So many of you, hopefully, are familiar, or your students are, of the see something, say something language, and reinforcement was incorporated into revised safety training. So as we do the safety training that was enhanced last year by policy to happen twice a year, first 30 days of the school year and the first 30 days back from the winter break to train all of our students. And the focus this time has been the see something, say something, the communication. A lot of things that we're looking at around safety, and some of those I'll report to a little later tonight. But almost hands down, the thing that keeps us the safest is when our young people know to tell an adult when something's not right, when they see something on social media, when they hear a rumor, when a friend isn't acting. That is generally nationally what has been the biggest protector of students is that relationship. So one of the things we're focusing on. Training additions were reviewed by the district's law enforcement and emergency management partners. So we have a committee of all the local first responders that meet on a pretty regular basis. Mike and I sort of co-chair that. Really, a lot of times that means Mike does. And we meet with the folks to make sure our planning is up to date with the latest best practices. We also have done the training at the beginning of the school year, where we brought all of our leadership team to Roosevelt and brought the police in and just sort of stood back and watched as they demonstrated for us how they would react in an emergency, so we have a better understanding of that. And then you maybe also have seen, and we've talked about this, but then the city in their budget recently is working with us to figure out how we can add additional SRO, school resource officers. The vision, as you know, there is to have one at every secondary building on a permanent basis, and then some flexibility at the elementary level. It's a great program. Yeah, I'm always very impressed with the relationship that our SROs have with our students. And if you come to a ball game or anytime their students are gathered where the SROs are there, you know, it's not a formal, it's a very, you know, they know each other. They have a relationship, and that's an important part of the see something, say something. But it's also, it's a win for the city because then they have a connection with the young people as they grow up, whether it be on the weekends and summers, that sort of thing. So excited about that possibility as we move forward with our budget, and the city hopefully with their budget as well. Questions so far? All right, I'll turn the page. Number 4, review state and district high school graduation requirements and develop an action plan for allowing greater student choice in their education. This is a pivotal part of our strategic plan. And so the first step of that is to see where we're at currently and what are the best practices happening nationally, what we can do. We know that our students need to be highly engaged in their education, have a view, a vision, and a hope for what their future might be. And so that's part of what we're trying to work through. So Mark has been working with a committee to develop what we would call a portrait of a graduate. And again, that's something we've talked about. We'll also bring to ed programs. What is it that a graduate looks like? What are the skills? So what's that portrait? And then we back up and figure out, okay, what are all the things that need to happen with that young person before they get to graduation? And that's not something that's happening in isolation. There are 31 people involved in a committee from the high schools, from the middle schools, administrators, teachers, community partners, talking about what is it that's going to make a young person be successful. And we want to create that portrait and make sure that we give all of our students that opportunity so that when they walk across that stage in May or June, they're prepared for the next phase in their life, wherever that takes them.
So Mark, when do you expect there to be some kind of report out from that committee about some of the things they've learned?
Well, we meet February 27th next,
Okay.
So that's Wednesday, and then we hoped to be done March 13th, but with the weather, we may have an April meeting.
Sure.
But right now, we've got a little bit of an idea of what we want for our portrait, and we're running it through some different filters to try to make sure that it is exactly what we want, and we've got the terminology the way that we want it. And then we'll start digging into graduation requirements, the courses, and things like that the students are going to be taking.
They've done a great job, and as Mark said, like so many of our committees, our de-stilt and everything else, it seems like the weather is just hammering us every time we turn around. So it's what's the picture, what's that portrait, and then what are the requirements, and how do we get these our graduates to that point? So
Do we have representation of our business community on that committee?
No, right now it's just educators. Right, just educators for now. There are other committees, and Stan's going to talk about them later, that I'm working with that are representative of the business community.
Yeah, there's a lot of conversation going on with the business community right now about how are we going to make this happen with internships and a variety of things that we'll get to. And you might remember at our last meeting, I showed you sort of that ladder that talks about what happens in middle school, 9th and 10th grade, 11th and 12th grade. So that's the kind of work that's happening kind of consecutively with the business community, GPC, chamber, all those folks, and then a portrait of a graduate, and then how do those things fit together with our graduation requirements. And that's where it always gets a little sticky, is what is required, what isn't required, what's an elective, what's offered, and quite honestly, what maybe isn't offered anymore. But that's the business we have to be in to make sure our kids are ready to move forward. Let's see. Number 5, enhance relationships with outside agencies focused on restorative strategies, mentoring, and tutoring. There is a lot of momentum around this nationally about restorative practices, so that when a young person makes a poor choice or choices, what is it that helps them learn from that mistake and puts them on the right track? How do they restore themselves into the student body, as well as to put them on the right track to make better decisions in the future. So restorative strategies have been defined by a collaborative community group. Really, it's been facilitated primarily by the Y, but work with the school district. And a diversion program is in place with trained mediators, and that's really the key, is finding those trained mediators, and Shirley is a big connection there for us. Program has now been utilized and is operational, so we do have students going through that process. With a review of initial cases underway to continue strengthening the program and enhancing its effectiveness. So it's new, so it's going to take a little bit of continuous improvement, a little trial and error, but it is well underway. As well as the district continues to attend Dubuque mentoring partnership meetings and ensures mentoring meets best practices through the National Quality Mentoring System. So again, it's connecting our young folks with positive adult models in their life. Some have more of those than others, and we want to make sure that all of our students have that opportunity to work with a mentor or with some adult to make sure that they have a vision of how they can become successful themselves. So, any questions on that?
Is that all levels? Elementary, middle, high school?
Yes, it's growing. It's not all. It exists in all levels currently, in different places and different buildings, but that's what we're trying to enhance. And so at the elementary level, sometimes that's a mentoring program that is run by the school, but it's also the connection with the Dream Center, and that goes into the middle school as well. Or it's a connection with what's happening in the school, or the Multicultural Family Center, or Black Men's Coalition, or John Deere, through some of the things that they do around their engineering and that sort of thing. So it's not to scale. It exists top to bottom, but it's not to scale yet, but we're getting there pretty quickly.
Is there a timeline that you're looking for to get it to scale?
Well, I mean, clearly within the confines of the strategic plan, but obviously we don't want to take 4 years. So
Sure.
You'll see, I think, next year, or that might be maybe what you're hinting at is then another more specific target for next year's priority initiatives to say, okay, where are we going to be? But that's exactly where we're headed. Another thing we've talked about a lot is systematize the recruitment of students into courses that provide college career experiences with specific emphasis on removing barriers for underrepresented populations. So how do we help our students understand what their skills are, what their passion might be, and then what coursework they might need to take them where it is that they envision that they want to go. So high schools have leveraged intentional scheduling with students of color in order to offer students more choice earlier in the academic career. So working one-on-one or in small groups with students to help them maybe choose a CTE class or an earlier level AP class or something that maybe they wasn't in their mindset, but that there's a connection or realization that there's a skill set for. And doing that early, helping them get on the path so they can take more classes in that area or decide that's not for me and explore different areas. But being more intentional about the experience that students have when registering for classes in those earlier years, particularly the transition from 8th to 9th grade. High schools are partnering with area agencies to present high school CTE experiences that could lead to concurrent classes, CTE-related careers, and internships. So again, that's that path that we're heading down. And Mark, I don't know if there's anything you'd add to that, but that's where a lot of the work is going into from the portrait of a graduate, but then what opportunities exist for kids to see the world beyond maybe the one they currently experience in their own lives or within the confines of the school.
Yeah, about the only thing I'd add is next year we will have 4, we hope it's 4 internship classes in each of the CTE areas, 1 in each of the CTE areas. It'll all depend, we could end up with 1 encompassing all the areas depending on the number of students that sign up for it. But we're trying to get things in place so that we can have students working and learning at the same time.
Yeah, it's setting the stage first. It's going to be sort of one of those kind of drip, 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 and then all at once experiences as we get out into the community, as our business partners understand the power of that. It's also working with our students to, through AP Access Task Force, so that kids understand what is an AP class. I personally believe, so AP Human Geography is the freshman level AP class. We ought to have most of our students taking that AP Human Geography class. It's an opportunity to test the waters in the AP. AP would be the first to tell you that the overriding success indicator is not your current GPA. It's an interest in that subject area. And everybody loves geography, right? I mean, that's why I taught social studies. But it's also having a support system or a sort of a push, a hand, an invitation to join that class. So we really want our students to understand that AP might very well be for them, even if they don't necessarily think coming through our doors that it is.
Stan, I got a question. Is and I might be wrong on this, the Cooter report or
Cooter
document
Navigator.
that each 8th grader is supposed to fill out before they get into high school that's supposed to help them navigate the system. Is this where that is going to be at?
So that's a part of it, and I don't know, Mark or Shirley, if you want to jump in on sort of the Cooter Navigator, but what Anderson's talking about is it's sort of it used to be I Have a Plan, Iowa, so as 8th graders they sit down and figure out, okay, where might I be headed and what classes do I have to take, not only to get to graduation, but to prepare me for that path that I want to get on. Cooter Navigator is a little bit more specific and with some interest inventories and those sorts of things to help kids understand where their skills might be, their interests might be, their passion might be, and then outline some careers that they might be interested in. It goes through the availability of those careers, the growth of those careers, and then it gets down into what classes should you be taking so that you're not a senior going, well, I thought I was going to be an engineer, but I haven't taken any advanced math, and so there's not a fit there. So that's often the first step. It's also available to the student. It's online, so they can have that conversation with whomever they choose, really.
Because I believe there was a lot of conversation amongst us about how often are students reviewing that and who's going to help them like every single year to review. We talked about possibly IJAG or someone to constantly every single year review that to make sure the students are on track with what they decided they wanted to do.
Absolutely. That was really the issue with I Have a Plan. A lot of times it was you did it as an 8th grader and then it popped back up every year, but really there wasn't a lot of small group or one-on-one with that. So that's part of the plan that's being built so that we have that to direct kids not to direct kids, that sounds wrong. We're not trying to direct kids, we're helping them move where they want to move. Mark, anything?
No, that's exactly right. You know, and ultimately, we'd like to be able to mine the data in Cooter Navigator to be able to invite students into particular opportunities that may be out there for them that might help them figure out what it is that they want to do later on in life.
It's also going to be an important tool for us as we set up the college career ready goal, so that we can understand better what is it that we need to develop with our business partners in the way of internships, or what classes should we have concurrent enrollment relationships with the community college, what are those PSEO classes or the AP classes that we offer, by really students kind of vote in a sense by what it is that they say that they're interested in on their, we're not off, because the worst thing we can do, right, is offer something that students just simply aren't interested in. Yeah. And so by being able to mine sort of this information, this data from the Cooter Navigator, we can start to set up specific work experiences or class experiences based on really the desires of the kids. And the other thing that's really important to me as a parent of an 8th grader, who will be a 9th grader next year, is helping them understand what does that work world look like for them. I mean, if they think they want to be a, you know, I don't know, pirate, the growth opportunities there aren't very strong, right? So what are the things that they're interested in? What's the reality of that as a future career?
He lives on the river.
Everybody who knows Jack can laugh.
Hey Stan, I have a question about, just kind of in general, number 4 and number 6, even though they're listed separately, are they somewhat, do they somewhat affect each other?
Number 4 and number 6?
Number 4 and 6.
Absolutely. As we've gone through this, there's a lot of connections here.
Yeah.
You can't do one without the other, and so there is a lot of, and Mark kind of alluded to that earlier. You know, we'll talk about this and then we'll swing back around, because they really are connected. And if you look at really in our strategic plan, in those bottom 2 tiers, the college career ready, the graduation rate, all those other ones, the 3rd grade reading, the 8th grade, all of those things kind of spiral us to that end point. But you're right, a lot of times the priority initiatives are, one depends on the other. Research best practices and case studies across the country related to closing the achievement gap. So a lot of things have been happening in that area. We've just recently had a principal and 2 teachers attended the Standards Institute in California. And it was really focused around using standards to remove bias and inequity and teach students with a variety of learning styles. And so it really is about how do teachers teach that incorporates the learning styles and the aptitudes and the interests of all of our students. We've also we've hired, as you probably remember, a new person to be in charge of our library systems district-wide. She's done an audit of our library materials and has applied through the DRA system for a grant to fund new diverse literary offerings in district library collections, so that our libraries offer a wide range of reading materials that really speak to all of our students. In addition to staff attending new teacher-centered training, the district was invited to participate, and we've accepted that invitation, in a pilot program with the new teacher center of the University of California, Berkeley, and Stanford University, focused on supporting teachers and creating optimal learning environment. So many of you maybe already have this, but I'll hand it around anyway. This is really a fantastic opportunity for our district. I mean, those are some big name players, University of California, Berkeley, Stanford University. I don't know how many schools have been invited to participate. It's not a large number. So we are focusing on the optimal learning environment, which really gives us an opportunity to talk about create emotionally, intellectually, and physically safe environments, implement equitable, culturally responsive, and standard-aligned curriculum and instruction, meet the needs of diverse learners. So there's a lot more information on the sheet than just that, but that really has been what best practice has been, and we've jumped into that pretty heavily, and we're very excited about that possibility, or not the possibility, but of moving forward with that pilot and really becoming a school district that understands how we educate all of our students. So I'm not sure if we've even shared the news about the pilot or if you're hearing about that first time tonight, but we're very excited about that.
In the stem of this one, research best practices and case studies across the country related to closing the achievement gap, I see inherent in that really looking broadly at best practices. New Teacher Center certainly is a wonderful grounding point for 612 and our new teacher mentoring program. In terms of looking more widely at best practices, excuse me, is there a person or is there a group who's charged with looking at some of the other issues we've looked at with our achievement gap between our Title I schools and our non-Title I schools and related issues to those equity?
So yeah, that's a good point. I should have mentioned that on my, so as we have looked at this, you know, and it really has historically been some of my job and some of Shirley's job and Mark's job and Amy's job and Cindy's job. The idea was that we needed somebody who was sort of tending to that 24/7. So as you know or may know, we're adding an equity position. It's posted. We are hoping to do, I can't remember when the posting is up. I think it's in a week or so, but we'll do interviews, and then we'll have somebody on staff. Amy, don't you know that yet? I'm just kidding. You've been this HR director for almost 28 minutes. So that really became clear as we worked through this process, because we're doing a little bit of this, you know, with May Henshin's work. We're doing a little bit of this in HR. We're doing a little bit of this in secondary and in elementary and in the world of special education, in the world of CTE, because it really is encompassing of, you know, of students, all their whole experience. So to have somebody who really helps sort of drive this forward and has the ability, the capacity to look at the data, to do the research and in a very sort of focused and constructive way. So
you see that person then being charged with a broad look
absolutely. The person that is ultimately hired will have a big picture vantage point of our district, from the classes we offer to the teaching styles that we utilize, to hiring, to just everything you can imagine. And so not sort of wanting to limit that person, but just say, look, you know, look at the system as a whole. And all of our students, and it might be, you know, identifying underrepresentation of a group in CTE classes. It might be a disciplinary practice. I mean, it just really is the whole system from top to bottom and side to side.
Good.
Anybody else? Okay, number 8. Make individual contact with middle school and 9th grade students who are not involved in activities. So as we know, involvement in a school, something is important. Coming to school and having some tie other than just the classroom experience is vital for most of our students. And so it can be athletically driven, it could be academically driven, it can be fine arts driven, but how do we connect with those students? So our student needs facilitators, informally known as SNFs, have focused outreach efforts among students with low grades to provide support, increase engagement, because we really know that that's where those students exist, is in our, particularly with our freshmen or 8th graders that have a low participation rates. And so what do we do to make that connection? Also, student leadership teams have been working to engage other students. That really revolves around LEAP, and we see our LEAP programs, our participation is up. 605 students participating this year, about halfway through the year by the time you put in all the snow days, so that's a significant number. And the student leadership teams, that's really Amy and her folks working with students saying, what do you guys want? You know, it kind of goes back to what we were talking about, the graduation rate. It's one thing for us as adults to think, well, we probably need to have this kind of an offering and that kind of an offering, but we need to ask students what they would be interested in, would be willing to stay after school for. I was over at one of our middle schools last week, and they had the Humane Society come in with a couple of their dogs, and just talked about, pet ownership and just some interesting things around animals and empathy and that sort of thing. So, offering and the room was pretty full. And so what is it that we offer that draws kids there? Because if we offer something they're not interested in, they simply don't come.
I noticed there's steady progress in that it's easier to reach the middle school kids, but then when they jump to the 9th grade, there's not the leap anymore. So how are we effectively reaching those kids to keep the ball rolling?
I think that's always a work in progress. Oh, sorry. Like I said, this year our focus really has been to communicate with our students that are struggling academically and try to find ways that we can engage them in the activities that we offer currently at the school. And then again, talk to them about if we had this, would that make a difference? So I know one of the things that was talked about repeatedly was the weight room. They wanted the weight room open for everyone at a certain time. So we've done some things to try to make those opportunities happen for them. So.
Yeah, it's a different, they leave the middle school and then they're kind of feel like, well, I don't have to do those things anymore, and they might get lost in the shuffle.
So a couple of things happen when they leave the middle school. One is that they kind of get lost between 8th and 9th grade. And so that's the first step, is make sure those kids aren't lost. That if they're not participating, it's an intentional decision. Because some kids are going to say, I tried all those things in middle school and now I'm going to have a job. And for some kids, that's the right choice. But it is making sure that all students feel that they have that opportunity or that invitation to participate, and helping them understand there's a lot of things that happen in a high school that have nothing to do with, if I'm not musically talented, which I'm not, or athletically talented, or drama's not my thing, that doesn't mean that there aren't other things that they can participate in. So it's making sure that they, have an invitation to be a participant, and B, understand everything that's out there, and C, if they're choosing not to because they have a job, it is still, are you getting good grades, that sort of thing,
Yeah,
and seeing
maybe
how
there
that
is
connection
something
is.
during the school day they could participate in and still have that part-time job.
Yeah.
But as Amy mentioned, the focus initially has been those students who are struggling, because
Yes,
often
that's where you gotta
there's a high connection, correlation between those students who are struggling and the students not invited.
Got to find success somewhere
Yeah.
first.
Yeah, there are some amazing stories out there of people of students who are struggling, who get involved with, an activity or a sport, and that director or that coach sits down with them and says, look, here's the deal. If you want to participate, if you want to be eligible, here's what you have to do. We'll hook you up with some, friends who maybe can mentor, tutor you, that sort of thing. So it's those relationships that make a significant difference. And so starting with the students who are currently not being successful academically, it's a great place to start.
Good. Thank you.
All right. Number 9, community engagement. Develop a set of resources for parents, guardians, and community members regarding preschool and kindergarten school readiness. So this kind of goes back to that first one that I mentioned about the instructional coach for the preschool, but it really is the board's sort of brave step last spring to say we're going to look at student data, and one of the things we're going to look at is the FAST test for when they start kindergarten, which means in week 2 of their school experience, we're going to try and own some of that data. And that's a significant step. And so what are we going to do to make that data, because we want them to come through the door for kindergarten as prepared as they can be. So the prior initiatives around there, the first one is develop a set of resources for parents, guardians, community members regarding preschool and kindergarten readiness. So a lot of collaboration with this one, because again, those tend to be outside of our traditional experience. Through Duke's campaign for grade level reading is working to develop community resources for school readiness. There's an asset mapping, and maybe I can let Cindy talk about that, happening within the community, and I believe the Community Foundation is helping support that, to say, okay, what are the assets or the resources that are available to kids prior to kindergarten, and where do they exist and where don't they exist, and how can we as a community and as a school district help make some of those opportunities available?
Right. So right now we are preparing a survey of the partners, and it's around school readiness, summer learning, and school attendance. And the survey is about an overarching theme of parent engagement. And then from that, we'll analyze that and determine the gaps, and then look for other partners or ways to address those gaps.
Another kind of an interesting, the district has worked with and trained the staff at the Carnegie Stout Public Library, and will be around what it is that we're doing, particularly in reading and in math, so that when the young people are at the library, there's a connection between what they're seeing and hearing there and what we're doing. And then the latest one is collaborating with the Dubuque Police Department on how to engage students in ways to support school readiness. So, you'll see police officers handing out the stickers and the badges, and so Cindy and I'm not sure who the connection at the police department is. Joe Mesrich, who's the SRO, lead SRO, to train the police officers in some of the basics about reading and math. And so when they hand out a sticker, they'll ask students questions, or they'll engage them in a conversation about math, about reading, about that sort of thing, just to make it that whole community is here to support that. So I thought that was an interesting connection.
That's great to hear that we're out there training and letting those organizations know exactly what we're doing and what they can do, actually.
Absolutely. And
That's great.
And they've always been there and always, I think, had a desire to help. But we've maybe been the roadblock historically, being, this is kind of our world. And so to be a little bit more fluid in that and understanding, look, this is all of our responsibility, and we can't do it by ourselves.
I like that.
Absolutely. Number 10, and this kind of goes back to your point, Jim, too, about how these are interrelated. But define internship programs, research credit gaining opportunities, and begin outreach to community partners. So this is probably one of the most significant parts of our strategic plan. So collaboration continues with NICC, Greater Dubuque Development Corporation, Dubuque Works, Dubuque Area Labor Management Council, and others related to internships. So starting to outline that process, what that looks like, what would the needs of the employer be, what are the needs of the school district, how do we create opportunities for credit to be gained during that, but really getting our young people an opportunity to sort of leave our walls for a while as part of their experience. Mark, anything you'd add to that?
Talked about it earlier.
Yeah, pretty much did, because they all really kind of tie together. So 4 internship classes, that's what Mark mentioned earlier. Employer recruitment materials are in the process, will be completed in the district's April 26th meeting with the Manufacturing Alliance Sector Board. So it's trying to get out to all of these different aspects in our community. I'm involved in it with a CEO group that really the foundation put together, who are interested in the skills gap and what they see long term as an employment issue. With the unemployment being low in Dubuque, that creates some challenges, and so and a lot of folks interested in diversifying their workforce. So we've got the answer to both of those issues, or at least a portion of that. So we're trying to set up a system that helps them understand that some of our students will go right from high school graduation potentially into a apprenticeship program. Some will go to a 2-year program or a 1-year program. Some will look at internships and go away to 2-year, 4-year, 6-year degrees, but can they stay connected to the community so that when they graduate or are ready to enter the work world, their first choice is to come back to Dubuque and come back in significant numbers and in diverse numbers, so that we kind of are creating our own workforce. Now, some of those things are immediate. Again, a student graduates, goes into an apprenticeship program that happens pretty quickly. In some cases, we need to build relationships that will span 4 or 6 years, so that person has maybe some summer connections while they're off at the University of Iowa, get an engineering degree or something, and then choose to come back to Dubuque to be employed.
Question. I said that was going to be my last one. How do we begin to grow our own here in the school district? Begin to either get some teachers or bus drivers, just kids interested in our world here. In
actually the school district. So that's something we've talked a little bit about too. We don't want to forget our own needs, and certainly we have issues with a growing teacher shortage. There are fewer and fewer young people going into education every year. That shortage is going to be very acute in the next 5 or 6 years. We didn't tell Amy that till after she accepted the position. But the role of the HR director will be very complicated. How do we recruit? It used to be upper level math, science, foreign language. Now it's special education, it's English teachers, it's anybody who wants to come into a middle school. It's elementary reading teachers, special ed teachers. There is an acute shortage. That pool, I'm shocked as a former HR director how quickly that pool of applicants has diminished. I mean, Shirley's been spending a lot of time trying to fill some openings we have in our new center over at the Alta Vista. But Mark and Cindy certainly get involved in that, as Amy will. The applicants, they just don't exist. I probably shared this story with most of you. My daughter's a freshman at Iowa, and kind of polling her friends, and I couldn't come up with one person that she graduated with that she knew that I knew. And this is probably 100 out of the 400 graduates who's going into education. Not one. So that's a great point. So we've had that kind of, how do we get them involved in being a teacher and understanding all of the great things that come with being a teacher, but also then in the areas of being a bus driver, paraprofessional, food service workers, custodians. We have great career opportunities for people, but with a low unemployment rate, those positions become more and more difficult to fill.
I believe we're the number 2 employer in the city, in the area here.
Pardon?
That's debatable.
It depends how you look at it. So if you look at total number of employees, we're at or near the top. If you look at total amount of payroll, we're not.
Oh, okay.
So we have a lot of employees who are just not paid that well. Well, I shouldn't say it that way. They're not as highly paid as some other
Probably the
places.
latter.
So if you look at total employees, which we hit about 2,000, we probably are the largest employer. If you look at it, payroll, we are not.
Plus, Anderson, we want to start these kids young, so we'll be rolling out our new bus driver apprenticeship program called the Let the Third Grader Take the Wheel program. So you can be the first to know.
There we go. We can focus on trash, recycling, a lot of stuff going on.
You like to get your picture out there, in the middle of all this stuff. So with that third grader behind the wheel, you could be sitting in the seat right behind him, just you two on the bus.
Make sure it's a wide-angle view so we can see the look on your face.
As long as there's seatbelt on that bus, I'll go anywhere with that.
We'll be on camera.
Down that icy road, down Bud Road.
Yeah, right,
Just do
right.
that.
We're going to go
And an
right up to
airbag.
Tom's house and just go straight towards it.
There you go.
This has not been a banner year to recruit bus drivers. Those folks, if you see a bus driver, make sure you thank them because they work
It's a tough
an
job,
unbelievably
for sure.
stressful job in this weather to make sure our kids arrive safely. And
Yeah, I had a question back to Mark, probably. Are the 4 internship classes at each high school next year, does that mean like there's one class for 9th graders, 10th, 11th, 12th, or how's
No,
that?
it'll be juniors and seniors,
Juniors?
but it's in each area of CTE.
Okay.
with
I have
the
a
idea of
question.
expanding that.
The workforce in Dubuque, that are always say they're looking for young people to enter their manufacturing or whatever for new employment, and they'll train them on the job. They're eager to do that. Are they reaching out to the schools, or is it us? Is it kind of both ways?
It's definitely both ways. We've had some employers who have approached us, I won't use their name because we haven't really cleared that with them, who are,
And that's perfectly okay for them, right? 'Cause
absolutely.
I've told employers when they approach me with
Sure.
it, I say, talk to the schools. We're happy to work with you.
Yeah,
and
we want to
help fill
develop a
those
program
positions.
for sure, especially if it's a long range, a long-term opportunity. But we've had some employers who have done sort of a staged approach where they brought the kids in for a day and showed them the students who were interested, showed what was going on. Then the next step of like sort of a opportunity to be there for multiple days and job shadow, and then some of those students will hopefully be offered an opportunity
That's great.
post-graduation to attend their training facility and have really significantly paying jobs. So
Yeah, and they're training them on their time. They want to train them from the beginning, and if these kids are eager
yeah.
and willing to learn.
And we want our students to understand what it takes to be that successful candidate. And sometimes it's a high level of math, but sometimes it's showing up for work on time,
Work
dressed the
ethic,
right way,
yeah.
with a customer service mindset and a smile on your face, and doing whatever it takes to be successful. And we want our kids to understand
So
that.
that's really community involvement if they're reaching out to us too.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'm thinking about the harsh reality in something you said earlier. When you think about this district being the largest employer-ish,
Ish, yeah.
but by no means the largest payroll,
Mhm.
To me, that just so glaringly reminds us of funding to education and how Iowa's funding to public education is not keeping pace to keep us being able to attract through reasonable salaries the kind of workforce that we need to. As the workforce shrinks, we're not left in a competitive posture. And while we celebrate a bit of an increase in state funding this year, I think as a board, we're facing the harsh realities of funding not keeping pace with need.
Yeah. Absolutely, we are at a competitive disadvantage with many of our neighboring states.
Right.
The one thing we can point to that we're a little bit ahead as a state is the retirement system, but there aren't many 23-year-olds who care about the retirement system as much as they do what the pay looks like. So we'll continue to work on that. That's just one more thing to add to Amy's list of things to fix.
There you go.
Sure you want to take this?
It's too late now. Number 11, under engagement, further engage parents in student learning with the launch of Seesaw application in every elementary classroom. So Seesaw, again, is that opportunity to communicate. It's been fantastic. Seesaw continues to be used as a tool in each elementary school to engage students, teachers, and family members. Almost 320,257 items have been posted to Seesaw across the district to date, with almost 358,572 parent visits. So that is a pretty powerful tool. So staff are continuing to build awareness of Seesaw with families and deepen its usage with both families and students. So it's just a real easy connection between the family and the student and the teacher and what's happening, and the ability to reinforce that at home. Effective resource management. Our CFO is in Hawaii, so apparently he's a little smarter than we are today on a cold day. Added improved physical security measures, ensure that all classrooms have locking doors, enhanced camera systems, and implemented an in-building alert system. So I'll work backwards. The in-building alert system, we have viewed a couple of those. That is something that we anticipate being up and running towards the end of the school year?
Toward the close of the school year, we expect that we'll bring a recommendation to the board next month at the meeting. We're working through the final steps with that.
And there'll be an integration there that gives access to employees, but that it's also very accessible by law enforcement, and gives it'll shrink reaction time significantly, and that's what it's all about. In these events, every minute you can shave off saves lives. Enhanced camera systems we have replaced in Kobe. I don't know if you have that number, but we have replaced hundreds of cameras. If you remember last year, the board set aside $500,000 for safety security upgrades. Cameras was a portion of that. We are in a much better spot and continue to add cameras and quality cameras to our system. And then the last thing on this list was the classrooms have locking doors. So they have been retrofitting those, I believe, as of this morning. When they came in and put locks on the doors in the forum, that we are at 100% where our classrooms have locking doors. Again, it's about delaying. There are very few instances where, when there is a school issue, that a perpetrator breaches a locked door. So we'll make sure our staff, our students have the ability to lock the door. Some other issues we're continuing to work through, but it remains a top priority for us. 13, maintain alignment with financial targets to ensure expenditures are maximized to support strategic goals. As you know, the district offered an enhanced early retirement incentive this year in order to address expected budgetary challenges related to low supplemental state aid. 30 teachers decided to take advantage of that incentive. You all know the pros and cons of that. We lose some great teachers, but it allows us to continue to focus on the number of teachers that we have and class sizes and those types of things with that. And budget work is now underway for the 2019-2020 school year using the supplemental state aid figures recently approved by the Iowa legislature. So as you know, in April, Kevin will have his budget recommendation for the board, with us due April 15th. So now that we know the 2.06% SSA, the work can, and we know what our enrollment is this year, because next year's funding is based on this year's enrollment, as you know. So we've got those numbers and budgets being put together. 14, implement Year 2 of Anytime, Anywhere Learning Initiative and complete addition of 11th grade courses in the Canvas Learning Management System. So as you know, we started with the freshmen, now freshmen and sophomores, next year freshmen, sophomores, juniors. And so then when we hand the students the computer, there has to be a software system and then training with the teachers that goes with that so they can maximize the use of that anytime, anywhere. 11th grade master courses are in the process of being developed and built in the Canvas Learning Management System. Again, we pay for that technology through the SAVE. We are hoping to hear some information about the SAVE tax. It was actually in the House Ways and Means Committee tonight. I spoke with Margaret Buckton about 4 o'clock. She texted me 52 minutes ago. So it passed through the House, make sure I got that right, House Ways and Means Committee on a vote of 23-1. The chair said they want to move it quickly, but we'll see. The governor has voiced support, so I think it's a pretty strong bipartisan support. So I believe the sales tax will get extended this year. Might be some nuances around that, but it's looking pretty positive, which impacts facilities, which we can talk about, but also technology moving forward, because you can buy technology with that. 15, construct the Alta Vista campus expansion with completion anticipated during the 2019-20 school year. Construction is underway. Block classrooms and office walls being built, plumbing being roughed in, sprinkler system being installed. Weather, as you might imagine, has slowed the progress some, but at this point the project remains on schedule and on budget for its anticipated completion date. So we'll get some pictures to a support services meeting and do a tour at some time when the weather makes that a little bit more conducive. But in the meantime, if you drive by Alta Vista Center, you'll see that building well underway. All right, employee excellence. Develop coaching skills and school-level teacher leaders to provide differentiated professional learning that supports individual student learning. So again, this is about our Fridays and how do we differentiate the professional development. It happens at other times too, but Fridays is a main player with that, so that it is time that is well used with our staff so that they can impact their teaching strategies, optimal learning environment for our students. New teacher center training continues across secondary schools with 2 district trainers to broaden the impact in the district. So previously we have paid through the teacher leadership grant for new teacher center to come to us. Obviously after some time we want to develop our own trainers and our own leaders, and so we're in the process of doing that so that we're not relying upon that, them coming to us all the time. We have them on staff. Elementary instructional coaches are participating in learning labs facilitated by Keystone AEA to collaboratively share best practices and strengthen coaching techniques. And the educational support team members and select building teacher leaders are attending professional learning for impact training offered at the Keystone Area Education Agency. So again, focusing on that, developing the teacher skills, that's what makes an impact, you know, on a day-by-day basis for our students, is what's happening in the classroom. Update the district administrative organizational chart to ensure alignment in the support of the strategic plan. So comparison data has been collected for the central office administrative makeup of our peer districts, just for fun.
Tell you something you already knew.
It's not a great comparison there. We are a little bit lean from the central office, and we're that way intentionally. We did that, made that decision budgetarily about 4 years ago because we wanted to maintain resources at the classroom level. So one of the first things that has been recommended is the district has posted an equity coordinator position to further district's focus on equity-related initiatives, which was your question earlier, Nancy. That posting is, I believe, another week.
Tomorrow.
Oh, it's tomorrow. Thanks, Colby. Just thank you, Amy.
Thank you.
So we are gathering.
Thank you.
So tomorrow.
Takes a village.
That's right.
Doing these jobs.
It's all about teamwork. So we'll see what the applicant pool looks like. I have not looked at that yet. We have had some interest shared with us from some pretty exciting candidates. So we're hoping to have a good, strong pool and do some interviews, get that person on the ground. Work continues. We need to explore ways to address administrative staffing needs in the area of special education and student services, as well as the work-based learning that we've talked about. So as many of you know, and I can't say this enough, really Shirley has been doing 2 jobs for the last 3 years. as both the special education director and student services director. We literally took 2 jobs and said, go to it. And Shirley has done a fantastic job, but we need to continue to find ways to support that, potentially adding to our organizational chart, because it's a how big is your plate kind of an issue, and we need to continue to make sure, especially in these areas, that we have that additional support. And then, of course, the new work being the work-based learning. That's going to be a new thing. Our goals are aggressive, so we will get to a point, at some point in the future, not today, not probably next year, but at some point in the future, where we need somebody really shepherding that process. When it grows to the point where we're not talking about 4 classes, we're talking about 20 classes, and we're not talking about a handful of kids doing internships or post-secondary enrollment or apprenticeships. We're talking about hundreds of kids doing that. We'll need leadership in that area. So and of course that has to meet our budgetary constraints. And that's the other piece with the when we get an SSA of 2.06%, it keeps us on an even keel, but it certainly doesn't allow us to add some of the value-added pieces that we need, whether that be from pay benefits to attract new teachers, or whether it be to add needed positions to drive us forward.
Let's not be afraid to ask the businesses to pitch in for those programs too.
Well, and that's the conversation that we've begun to have. This is really a win-win. And so, how do we have a conversation? What does that look like? Is this a position that is, how is it the district, partially paid by the district? We certainly don't want to lose all of that, but and then who could participate in that? Because it really is focused around career development, and certainly meets the needs that many of the businesses have for future employees as well. So that very well could turn into a shared expense. Absolutely. And then 18, support 7 administrators in the School Administrators of Iowa Mentoring and Coaching Program. Those administrators have been participating in that program, attending the sessions, and just finding out what life is like in other districts, and it's been great. We haven't always participated in statewide initiatives like that, but the principals and Mark and Cindy, if anything you add to that, but our teachers our principals who have been involved with that have found that a very positive experience. I think they find a lot of things that we're doing well, that people are saying, wow, you were doing all that in Dubuque, and then of course we find some nuggets of things others are doing well that we bring home and get on our sort of list of things that we want to implement. Are there any questions about the current status of priority initiatives? One thing I realized that about 90% of the way through is that I was not giving you the update on the icon, but you've got those in front of you. Your sheet looks a little different than mine. But you can see where we have self-assessed ourselves to be with each of those initiatives. Any questions? Okay, so it's February, which means in this office, at least, a lot of our time is spent talking about the 1920 school year. We really, once we turn the calendar over, we start to talk a lot about next year. So developing the 1920 priority initiatives is something that we've begun, that process, and so that's a vital step that the board needs to participate in that, whether that be tonight or in future subcommittee meetings. I just throw that out there tonight. But we get a lot of input around those initiatives, but they all focus around the strategic plan. Those initiatives aren't just sort of, okay, what should we do next year? It's what should we do next year, formulated by what we've done this year, targeting where we're headed as a strategic plan. So there's some flexibility in there, but there's also some focus in there, so that we don't. The reason we went to that is so that we don't sort of, chase shiny objects, but that we're headed to a very specific destination. So we do that by discussing it with district leadership team, which are our teachers on special assignment, as well as building level administrators, district level administrators, and just talking about what are, from our vantage points, the things that need to happen next. DSILT, and we had our last DSILT meeting was snowed out, surprisingly, so we were trying to get that rescheduled. So that's where we got some input from community members, parents. The most fascinating part about DSILT, if you've never been to one, those of you who've been know exactly what I'm going to say, it's the young people who come. It's our middle school and high school students. They tell us what it is. I mean, they're living it, and we don't always want to hear what they have to say, but generally they're right. So DSILT, of course, board subcommittees, which is where you can certainly have a significant input, and we'll begin talking about that at our upcoming meetings. Building leaderships teams, and then our parent-teacher groups, because as district leadership, then our principals go back to their parent groups and building teams and get some information and funnel that back to us. So that process, then in May, we bring the recommendations, which hopefully aren't ever a surprise. You've seen sort of those grow for next year's priority initiatives. To be hopefully begun in May, and May is important because then it allows us some time in June, July, and August to get ramped up for the following school year.
If you remember when we started this at the beginning of talking about our strategic plan, we talked about how we wanted to, instead of us coming in September or October and talking about what we wanted to be the priority initiatives for the year, all the work had already been done by the district. So for us to come in and say, oh, we need to focus on this, which is why we wanted to go through this, the update from Stan a little bit quicker.
Sorry. I think I said 45 minutes, but.
And then allow for the board to be able to give, their thoughts for ideas for the district to take it to for next year, because it's going to be different next year, because not only is the year going to be started, but there could be new board members not until the end of November. So this gives the opportunity for the board to get that in place to be able to talk about. So if there's something that a board member wants to see the district to look at, not necessarily do, because all the board has to support it, this is the time to be able to start thinking about it and bring it up, either now or at the committee meetings.
And we know this is kind of, it doesn't have to be a refined thought. It can be a brainstorm, and again, there'll be plenty of opportunities, and we've got a couple of months here to develop this. So, but just would be interested in if there are initial thoughts to either what we've done or where we might head next. And again, don't worry about putting it in any type of language. We'll take some notes here and try and formulate that and kind of go back and forth with that. And again, we'll do that make that a part of each of our subcommittee meetings coming up as well.
Yeah, I think that would be good to have on each of the agendas.
We'll put it on the agenda.
Yeah. Yeah, but does anybody have anything they want to bring forward?
I'd just say some high-level thoughts are, I think our focus on the individualized learning is critical. I think we need to just double down on the community partnerships that we're developing, because I think that's going to be the real key, both for what we want to achieve that supports the strategic plan, but also I think Tom just touched on it just briefly, and that is I think there's a financial component of that allows us to do more than we can do alone. And I think the business community has you don't have to go very far. The term workforce is on everybody's top of their list. So I think that provides us with enough direction in that area. And then lastly, I would just say, I don't think we can do enough in the areas of our employee excellence, because the reality is we can come up with all these great partnerships and all this individualized learning, but at the end of the day, we've got to have people in the classrooms that are leading that and collaborating. Those are just three areas that just strike me that those are, I know there's a lot of work been done. We've had some success in those areas, but I just think now's the time we double down on all three of those. And a lot of these other things to me are just, they're byproducts, or I'm not saying that they're not important, but
We do them every day anyway.
That's really what we're trying to do here. I think with the revised strategic plan there's some big bodacious goals out there that we've set, and I think those are three areas that just strike me that we've got to double down on if we want to get close to those.
Absolutely.
Gifted, talented education. I don't hear nearly as much about that as I used to back in the day. If we're going to spend a massive amount of time on achievement gap, if we're going to spend a massive amount of time on school to work, for lack of a better term, I hope we're also focusing on gifted, talented programs as well, because there are kids out there that are simply pure killer students, you know, and they come in various, it might be a math kid, it might be a music kid, it might be whatever it might be, but those programs to really get at those seriously academic-based kids.
Absolutely, and I think there that you'll see some things there. We'll hopefully we'll move that direction at our middle and our elementary. But I hope also that when you hear us talking about the opportunities for these mentorships, these internships, we're talking about we're talking about the kid who wants to do an electrical, an apprenticeship kind of a thing after graduation. But we're also talking about hooking up the student who's that math guru who wants to be, an electrical engineer, kind of thing, and creating relationships there and mentorships there, so we get those kids, or they want to be a doctor or a surgeon, so that it really is from however you want to put it, from A to Z.
Or entrepreneurship. I would
all
like to
those
see a
types of
focus on
things.
that.
I couldn't agree more.
Something
Yep.
more of on entrepreneurship, because we need kids to be able to know what it takes, what's
Absolutely.
behind that, what's
Yep.
the risk reward for it, and why people do it.
Yep.
And they need to experience that some of the greatest small businesses they started out as a mechanic and they developed their own. I mean, that's part of not only does it get into the trades, but what can they do? I would like to see,
We currently have an
focusing on
entrepreneurship
that.
program, but how do we take that sort of to the next level? So it's not just one class,
right.
but it's something a student can, again, through their interest, through their desire, expend more time on that.
And is it are they exposed to the right people? Because it's great to be a teacher to talk about entrepreneurship, but
Yeah, you have to have
you don't.
connect with someone
It's
who's done
totally
that.
different than.
Right. And those all strike me. That's how I'm probably wrong in doing that, but I define all those as individualized learning. Whether I'm
Yeah.
the kid that's at the top
Yeah.
of the SATs and knocking it out of the socks, or I'm the kid going, what am I going to do after I walk across that stage?
Absolutely.
And that's a big deal.
Yeah.
I mean, as you can see, you guys have pointed out some really good examples of that's, there's a lot of different components to that we've got to it's really easy. All at the same time, keep your eye on how we're moving all of those forward and upwards.
Well, I
But
think
there are
it's so
some
easy.
strategies that we can utilize so that we put students in control of that.
Yeah.
See, I think
Yeah.
that's the key, is
Yeah,
that
there we
when
go.
we as the adults try to control every step, we can't do that for everybody, so we end up in the middle. So how do we empower our students to make some of those decisions, make those choices, and be motivated to create that learning, which is, I think, what we're trying to
And
to
start
get
at a
to.
young age.
And start younger and younger, yeah.
Kind of like where we have in our high schools, we have our computer gurus are helping students
Our help desk, yeah.
problem solve their laptop issues.
Yep, absolutely.
I really like where we've come with the activities program. I really like where we've come with financials and operations in the district. I like the talk we've had about achievement gap. I mean, there's so much stuff in the current plan that is just really, really good. So kudos to the progress that we continue to make.
And I assume that we will continue looking at the achievement gap issues
Absolutely.
and bringing on an equity person in that new position. I hope that we'll really continue to move forward in exploring where are we with that and how can we do better.
Absolutely. I mean, with all the things that you've said, I mean, again, there's a million reasons why we would do that. But one of the things that's helping pull that along is because there is in Dubuque a place for every type of learner, every background of it. I mean, this is a community hungry for successful adults, and we've got an opportunity to help create that with all of our students.
Anybody else?
I had actually two questions.
Yes.
What is the status of financial literacy?
So we're waiting. So we're geared up to be able to offer it. The state, in my opinion, jumped the gun a little bit by requiring it of next year's seniors, but it looks like there's likely to be a bill, and I should ask Margaret that question too, that's going to get pushed back to the timeline that we established, so that the freshmen, because that gives everybody a chance to get that in their schedule in a reasonable way, as opposed to tell next year's seniors, you thought you were going to take Spanish 4, but you're not. You're going to take. So again, it's not that we don't want them to have it. We just need to have them build it into their experience. So it has not been changed yet, but I believe it's on the fast track to get done.
And question number 2, you couldn't get by without talking about this. What about our status of our snow? It's early, still winter time, but what?
Don't we start long days
I
on
do.
Monday?
I
It's still
dream
out there.
about snow, about ice, about winds. You know, Mike and I talk a lot. A lot of my mornings are 4 o'clock driving up Bud Road. I've been stuck in it just twice. You know, I can't wait for it to be summer. I think that's why Kevin's in Hawaii. So we are, with our best effort, with canceling a professional development day, with adding 25 minutes a day. Even since we've done that, we've chipped away at that time. And so we're down to just a few hours of additional time that we can delay or cancel before we'll need to do something else. And then so we'll bring a recommendation to but the next step would be to start looking at Friday mornings most likely. And we will start at the end and work backwards, and we'll do as few of those as we possibly can.
Is there any traction with that bill that was submitted limit to 5 days, the makeups?
I don't know.
I don't even know if that's a good idea.
Well,
to do that, but I'm curious.
so that bill mirrors one that's in Illinois. In Illinois, it's been the law for a long, long time that once you get past 5, you don't make them up.
Right.
For us, we know until this year we average about between 3 and 4. So I'd take a 3.5 as a 10-year average. Today we're at 11. So I think there is. I don't know that we need a bill that says as soon as you get to 5, they're waived. We build 5 into our calendar on a regular basis. I do think that it would be nice if there was a legislative ability for somebody to make a decision that in extreme cases, like a year where you had 11 or 12 or however many we're going to end up with, to make some decisions around that. So I don't know that it has to be 5. I don't know that it has to be a set number. I think it just has to be the ability to look at the totality of a school year and say, this is a hardship that can't be overcome. I mean, for us, we're working really hard to make our last day June 7th. If we kick around to Monday to the 10th, there are so many things that students are involved with, that our teachers are going back to school to do. It just really becomes a hardship. As a district, you have to announce whether you're counting hours or days on the beds report the year before. We always check hours because it gives us the greatest flexibility, even though we try to look at days. And so that's what gives us this flexibility. There are school districts in the state who check days who are currently looking at the week of June 17th, 18th, 19th. They're into the second to last week in June of school days. And they could very likely be, and some of those schools I think were canceled today because there are places in the state that didn't get to school today. Yeah. They could literally be in school the last week in June. There's not a lot of production that's happening there too, and it's, so is there any traction around this bill? I really don't know. I know it's out there. It would be nice if, I don't know that we need a drop dead number, but it would be nice if somebody had the authority at the state level to say, you know what, this is just that year. And we had another year like this 10 years ago, so it tends to run in kind of decade cycles, I hope. I hope, because by then...
Now I'm good, yeah. That'd be somebody else to worry about.
Are we watching on the news? Yeah, Mike, Amy, Colby.
I know that.
Comment. First of all, thank you for making the decision you did. I do like that we added a little bit of time each day instead of taking away the teacher, training on Friday mornings. So I appreciate that because, at first parents are complaining, the kids aren't in school enough, and then we're giving them more hours. So I know it's a hard decision. So I appreciate the staff doing the extra effort.
And it's, it
For a
really
longer
does,
day.
it does take a team, and it does, I'll be honest, I get tired. And when I get tired, I need somebody reminding me, whether it's a board member or somebody on the staff, that, it's about kids' safety.
Yeah.
And there are many mornings it would be easier for me to just say go to school, but I can't get to that point. We have to stay vigilant.
We all
because
appreciate that.
There have been tragedies around the state in the last month.
That's right.
And we just don't, people can call and chew me out all
Well,
they
the
want.
police department helped us out a little bit too by saying, hey, it was bad, this is a good call, at different times.
Absolutely.
So.
Yeah, and but people don't understand. I should have brought the map with me. But from top to bottom, top of the district to the bottom, north to south, is 30 miles. And it's 15 miles wide. And so the weather, think about the weather difference in a 30-mile radius. So it can be a nice day here and not down here. So we're going to post that so people understand. I was with a teacher and they had no idea how far south our district went, but top to bottom is 30 miles, and that's a pretty big footprint.
And I would disagree that parents are complaining that their kids are not in school enough. I don't think that's.
Mo- most-
I don't think-
No, I
most
didn't
parents
mean
get
it
it.
that way, that they're upset, you canceled school again.
No.
But then, I don't know.
Most
Everyone's
parents get
different.
it. I think people are, they're tired, but most
Yeah.
people get it. I get some complaints, but it tends to be somebody who lives a block from their school. They don't understand it. When
Yeah,
we explain the
that's what I
district, they
mean,
get
yeah.
it.
Well, it's a
But most
tongue in
parents
cheek
are
that the
tired.
parents are complaining. It's
Sure.
those,
Yeah.
that's all it is. It's like, my
It's
kid is driving me crazy
Well,
type of thing.
Sure, I get that at home.
Exactly. Anything else from the board?
The other thing, talking about the other extra programs that, we want to educate our students with those to ready them for the workforce. Where do we stand on, talking about teachers not being experts in a lot of these areas that people want to go in, or students want to go into? I know in college, talking about an adjunct teacher or something, is there still talk going on in lessening qualifications for?
So alternative licensure?
Alternative licensure.
Yeah, so there are
yes.
some bills about alternative licensure. I'll have to look at the bill tracker. Nothing that's really hit the front burner.
Okay.
So I know that there's still some talk out there. So that somebody's been an engineer and wants to retire and come
Right,
teach math
right.
for 5 or 10 years. Some of those bills exist. I just don't know how far they are in the process. We'll know a lot more as they hit funnel weeks to see what survives
Bring
and
me
what
off the
doesn't
bench.
survive.
Because that would be great for those classes that may not have a lot of students, but we can offer on campus for our students.
The last thing that we had up there, but we will kind of talk beforehand about maybe doing a special board meeting should it come to fruition, or tacking it on to support services, but will be to look at a multi-year plan, probably 10 years, about what to do with the sales tax and what are our priorities. Because those will be some significant decisions that will be made that will really impact the lives of the students here for 20, 25, 30 years. So it looks like that could happen. Margaret said maybe by the middle of March. And so if that does, we'll sort of pull the board and say, do you just want to do a big support services meeting, or do you want to do a standalone special session? Because
Yeah.
that'll be really important stuff.
Yep.
Great. Anyone else? All right, we are adjourned.
Thank you.
Thank you all.